So, hello to anyone who might be watching in the future and or lurking in the chat. Um, this is just like kind of a pseudo impromptu, you know, covering of the media discourse that I ran across on Twitter over the past week. First, brought on by the Discourse. The first thing that gave me this idea was there was a bit of a stink that even crossed Marrow's radar. It was already on my radar before Marrow started tweeting about it. Marrow, aka Nervardia. And I figured it was worth talking about, and then another couple things popped up, so figured might as well do a thing about it. And since no one decided to jump in as a guest, I guess we'll just get going. So first off, we're going to be discussing. Okay, no, that's not good. Oh. I really should figure out which layout I'm going to use before I jump in on this. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this is probably going to have to be the best one. So on May 30th, IGN, the tweeted out an announcement for a historical action game of the subgenre where your protagonist is murdering the numberless horde of invading invading forces. Think Ghost of Tsushima, and there's a couple of other examples, but basically you're from the trailer, you're a lone badass fighting against, it's in the you're a lone badass fighting against a horde of invaders genre of historical game. And with the twist this time being you're an Aztec playing conquistadors. Now this tweet is actually what brought this game on my radar. And Trey the Explainer, which great channel if you haven't seen it, tweeted, "I wish I could be more excited for this, but man, did they make what I assumed to be Tenochtitlan ugly as hell." Spaniards unanimously described it as one of the most beautiful cities in the world, incredibly clean and filled with color. And yeah, all of the pictures of the city that is supposedly Tenochtitlan, because this is about the fall of the Aztec Empire. You're playing an Aztec fighting off a horde of conquistador just by being a horde of conquistadors just by being a badass. And they basically made Tenochtitlan into like every shot of Tenochtitlan I've seen from this game it's basically just Jungle Ruin number 1492. And but then things got a bit spicier when the game's description came to light. The great Tenochtitlan is on fire. Now the war has broken out. I must choose whether to join our compatriots to repel the invader or to join the newcomers who want to liberate us from the priests sacrificing our own brothers and children. Now, but before I get into this, yes, the Aztec Empire was an empire, and empires are rarely benevolent, if ever. So, and it is a historical fact that, Cortez and hello, Robert X. So, disclaimers before I get further into this, but the Aztec Empire, being an empire, can't really be described as benevolent, but that's because of the nature of empires. And it is a historical fact that Cortez did, in fact, go amongst the other, Mesoamerican peoples that were being subjugated by the Aztecs to build support when he did, topple the Aztec Empire. That being said, when you have a genre where a historical action game genre where you're playing a lone badass against a horde of invaders that are usually minorities or minority coded, like, usually they're people who get the bad shake of history. It is kind of sus where, it is kind of sus that the first game to add nuance to the narrative is the one where you're an Aztec fighting conquistadors. Now, there's also been talk about how this last bit about the priests sacrificing, or about the choice, the last bit about the choice being added later after pressure from white supremacists. And of course, painting the Mesoamericans as a bunch of child sacrificing, savages was done by the Spanish to, help justify their inhumane treatment of, their inhumane conquest of Mesoamerica. Basically, what I'm saying is, it's two empires clashing together. It's hard to be historically honest and, say, oh, that one's a definite bad guy, one's a, definite good guy. But, the conquistadors did, did erase an entire culture when they did it. So it's like, I think it's kind of fair to, especially when you're operating in a game genre that doesn't have a lot of nuance, historical nuance in its storytelling. I think it's fair to save or to forgo that nuance when when the side you're fighting against is literally perpetuating or perpetrating, sorry, literally perpetrating a cultural genocide. So, but that being said, um, when I went to grab this description slide, I noticed that there was a little update recently put down. By recently, I mean June 2nd, and turns out that the rumors were at least somewhat founded in fact. The update reads, "We heard you loud and clear. You will be able to choose to join the conquistadors and fight the caste of sacrifice making priests, or to join the Aztec warriors and repel the newcomers. We updated the descriptions." Uh, that being said, it is saying that Tenochtitlan will be reworked, so hopefully it isn't going to be just drab. Like, minor win that Tenochtitlan may not be, drab jungle ruin number 1492. But on the other hand, they major lose for, bowing to the, to to the more colonial friendly narrative. So, you will be able to choose to join the conquistadors and fight the sacrifice making priests, or to join the Aztec warriors and repel the newcomers. We updated the description. The protagonist will find both allies and enemies between his own people and the newcomers, and we will try our best to make the game more historically accurate. Now, fun thing about historically accurate, the bulk of our sources from the fall of the Aztec Empire come from the Spanish, who were spinning the narrative to make their cultural genocide look more acceptable. So but if you were wondering why Twitter was going on and on about the conquistadors over the past week, this is the reason why. Is because there was a game, there's a game announced that will be released in 2 years where you're playing as an Aztec fighting against the conquistadors, and it is kind of, it does look kind of yikesy, at least in this stage of development. Especially since it looks like the design team decided to acquiesce to the demands of white supremacists. So with that, we're going to move from a game, or from media discourse that is yikesy because a game is peddling to racists, to media discourse that is yikesy because of racists. So this week, the Lord of the Rings pack, or the Lord of the Rings set for Magic the Gathering was released, and Aragorn's got quite a bit of melanin, and so, and of course, bigots on Twitter that care about Magic the Gathering were, losing their mind and spinning this way out of proportion, because that's what bigots on Twitter do. And so here's my take on the whole Black Aragorn discourse. So my take on quote unquote race bending is you have to be careful to make, basically you have to be careful that you're not, purposefully or, accidentally reinforcing negative stereotypes and tropes when when the cultural baggage of race is, of the yeah so there is, and then there are, there were tweets, it was a Twitter storm between the people losing their minds over Black Aragorn and no, I was just getting into it, Noodle. So basically, there's a, the bigots are mad that Aragorn has, quite a bit of melanin, and more racially, more those who are open to racially diverse media are basically saying, "Lol, cry snowflakes." Now, my opinion on, quote unquote race bending a character is you have to, it's best done in mind with the story that you're telling, and so basically, if we lived in a perfect world, racially blind casting and racially blind depictions would be a great thing. Unfortunately, we do not live in a perfect world, and there is a lot of baggage when it comes to media depictions of race that we do have to account for. Now, in terms of the themes of Aragorn's character arc in the Lord of the Rings, where he's an outcast figure who is looked down upon and mistrusted by most people, who eventually decides to reclaim his heritage and lead Middle Earth into a golden age. I'd say this is harmless at most, harmless at worst, and is actually probably a strong, of course, white person's talking about, racial theming, but I'd say it's probably a pretty positive depiction to depict Aragorn, with his character, with how his character arc goes in Lord of the Rings as a person of color. And like I said, at worst, it's harmless. That being said, There is a slight worry that I have that it may be an issue, that there may be like the one concern I have with Black Aragorn. Yeah. Yeah, and that's basically my point. Noodle says, I mean, that plot sounds like it would suit anyone of any race, but it could be racially thematic for him being of a minority race. That's what I mean by it's, harmless at best, or harmless at worst, and thematically positive at best. And hold on, do. And that account now has a wrench because I said I'd do that. So my one concern for the whole Black Aragorn thing is that it might be a case of what I call diversity shielding, where a corporation basically does make a diverse casting decision, but it's basically as a way to cover up, to more, it's, as something of a publicity stunt. Like, for instance, I can't really speak to the quality of The Little Mermaid, but from, because I haven't watched the live action remake, but from what I've seen, it looks to be your generic, soulless, rights grab Disney live action reboot. And it could be said that part of the reason why, it could be said by, people who are rather cynical in regards to corporations, that yeah. So Noodle, though I'd like to see more non-white characters whose race isn't arguably central to their plot because white people don't know how to write non-tokenized inspiration porn, people of color. Yeah, my basically my position on racially diverse casting or race bending is, at least make sure that you're not upholding their negative stereotypes. That basically make sure that you're not basically make sure that when you are changing a character's race as depicted, make sure you're not accidentally upholding a racist stereotype. And the reason why I'm mentioning diversity shielding in terms of Black Aragorn is because this isn't the first time we've had these images. Because a couple months ago, like around the it was either around the time, like it was either just after the OGL fiasco or during the OGL fiasco or right before the Pinkertons fiasco, Wizards leaked a couple of the Magic cards depicting Black Aragorn, or Aragorn as black. So part of me suspects that this is a cynical move to hope that all the racists and the bigots losing their shit on Twitter over this and other forms of social media will drown out the legitimate critiques that people have in regards to Wizards of the Coast and their current set of business practices. But, overall, I have no problem with it. Get mad racist, just kind of, explaining the fiasco. And so next, and finally, we have Trans SpiderGwen. Now, so after Across the Spider-Verse released, there a theory began to spread amongst trans Twitter that Spider-Gwen, or Gwen Stacy, is actually trans because the still with the poster of the trans flags that says "Protect trans kids" on it is in her room. She's depicted with hair dyed trans colors, colors of the trans flag. Both her and her dad are shown wearing trans pride pins. And apparently in the scene, there's a scene where she comes out as a Spider-Woman to her dad and apparently the palette goes all trans colors. Now, I haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse because unfortunately getting to the theaters is a bit of a hassle for me. So, Across the Spider-Verse looks really, really good. It looks so good that I'm pissed off that I can't get to theaters and see it. Now, basically, oh, so Noodle, TLDR, I don't care what color Aragorn is, but if you do, then he's blackety black, 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 and I will die tearing down your burning cross from this hill when you hide it under your white hood. That I'm sorry, I just had to highlight that. So basically, with the poster and the hair, and the hair color and the color palette in the scene, and the trans pride flag pins that both she and her dad are shown wearing, it's the trans community who's seen, the members of the trans community who have seen Across the Spider-Verse have basically said that version of Spider-Gwen is either trans or a trans allegory, and she is ours now. And honestly, I'm having not seen Across the Spider-Verse, I'm kind of on board with the theory because it is my opinion, because it seems like it's about as subtle as the whole bisexual Aunt May from Into the Spider-Verse was. What with Doc Ock being female in that, movie, and only my friends call me Liv, and then when she shows up, Aunt May says, "Oh, great, it's Liv," and alluding, and the fact that in as a nod to comic canon, Aunt May and Doc Ock have had an on again, off again kind of dating relationship whenever the writers want to throw a wrench into Peter Parker's life. So I feel like the evidence is there, and the studio does have a history of being kind of snide and putting the representation where those with eyes to see will see it. But that being said, when I went to go look for screen grabs for this, I found some backlash tweets that trigger warning, because we are going into transphobic territory, and racist territory as well. So first we have on the left, just let that assault your eyes, because it assaulted mine, and I have to share my trauma. Like, and leave it to alt-right gender critical trolls to boil it down to her suit is trans colors, so she's trans, even though that's not the argument that I've seen. But and then of course we have a little bit of the and then on the other side we have Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Miles Morales is Miles Morales, Steve Rogers is Captain America, Sam Wilson is Falcon with a shield, Rey is in a Skywalker, Aragorn is white. There are only 3 Indiana Jones movies. I will say there are only 3 Indiana Jones movies out right now. There may be a 5th being released in June, at the end of the month. And then, SpiderGwen isn't trans. But, the alt-right comic Stone Toss did. I have no idea why they're talking about Indiana Jones. I wonder. I wonder if I wonder, I didn't dig into this guy's Twitter history, but I'm wondering if he's disavowing the latest Indiana Jones movie sight unseen because Indy is fighting Nazis, even though that's what Indy does. I have no idea why someone would think that would be trying to decry Indiana Jones 5 as woke, but apparently there is. It hasn't crossed my Twitter radar yet. and the whole trying something smiley face makes me think he was he was basically going for outrage bait. disclosure, I am also a bisexual disaster. Yes, you're my bisexual disaster. But so anyways, I'll get that off the screen so it's no longer assaulting our eyes. And that was a week in, or rather, that was this week in media discourse. And TLDR for those who have missed stuff from the beginning. Aztec, there's a game coming out in 2025 where you play an Aztec fighting conquistadors that has been encouraged to include historical nuance by giving you the option to side with the conquistadors. And, racists are losing their mind over Aragorn being depicted as black in Magic the Gathering's version of Middle Earth. And, SpiderGwen belongs to the trans people, and there's nothing you can do about that. Also, Stone Toss got his hands on the SpiderGwen, got his hands on the SpiderGwen is trans thing, and did a comic on it. We're all pretty. I'm pretty sure, for those who are familiar with Nazi jokes about trans people, that how that comic ends. So I'll just warn you about it and be on my merry way. And so tomorrow we're talking Pride next. We're talking Pride. And maybe next week, maybe the week after, sometime this week, I may be doing, or, sometime this month around Father's Day, I'm probably going to be biting the bullet and doing a reaction to Ben Shapiro's review of Denis Villeneuve's Dune. And with that, remember, indoctrination is a hell of a drug.